It's Sam. This is Our Country, Our Voice. So I will give proper credit to the guy in the YouTube comments who came up with the name. I don't remember who it was, but I got that name from several other people. So that's what we're going to call it. Our Country, Our Voice. It's easy. It perfectly fits in with the name of our organization, Our Country, Our Choice. And it says what I want to say. So welcome to the show. Today, we're going to talk about several different topics, but really cool thing. We started talking to Kaity from Defender of the Republic a while back, and she's going to be a part of our show. So on a semi-regular basis, she'll be coming on. We'll be having a conversation talking about events that are going on in our nation. And she is a fantastic voice in our community. Really, truly. If you don't follow Defender of the Republic, you're missing out. I'll let her introduce herself, tell you about who she is. But without further ado, let's welcome Kaity to the show and let her tell us who she is. Hey, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Sam. I'm super excited to be here, and I love the name of the show. It's a great one, so kudos to that.
Thank you.
And it's perfect. So, yeah, I've been on social media for quite some time, and I've used my platform to talk to regular, everyday people across the country who felt like they were seeing things that didn't make sense, and we're trying to figure it out together. And that's really what I was doing. And in the process, I reached out to social media, and it resonated with people because I'm just a mom in New Jersey trying to make this country and my state better for the future of my children. And you can find me on X at Real Defender 45. I have a YouTube channel that I post on from time to time, but I mostly Rumble. And you can find me on Telegram and Truth Social as well.
That's awesome. So for the audience, Kaity and I did not meet each other through this organization. We've known each other for about a year plus, maybe a year and a half, maybe even 2 years. I don't know how long it's been, but we met through mutual association, through different events that we went through, Dr. Pete Chambers, a bunch of other names and people in our network and organization. And so when we run into each other at events, I think the last time we saw each other was at the event down at Mar-a-Lago, but it's always a good time. Like, hey, what's up? But yeah, you have been spot on with what you have to say. And really, I don't ever see you failing in your activism and your voice and everything you're talking about. So,
Thanks.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. I was grateful to have met you as well. I mean, there are so many people out there who have true integrity and great intentions for the direction of this country. And those are the people that need to have the voice and the platform to continue the messaging that is needed and to help encourage others who feel like they're not being heard.
Awesome. Yes. Couldn't agree more. So with that said, tell me what's going on in your neck of the woods.
Oh my goodness. So New Jersey is insane right now. We have a highly contested gubernatorial race going on in 2025. There are only two major races. There's Virginia, which is really a lieutenant governor race. And in New Jersey right now, we have our gubernatorial race where the primary is on June 10th and the general election is in November. But we can get into that more because there's so much to talk about there. But before we get into the gubernatorial race, I wanted to talk about what was happening in Newark because the public saw some crazy things happening. And one of the most important things in our nation right now is the open border and removing the criminal, illegal aliens that have infiltrated our nation. And in the state of New Jersey, we are we have a lot of sanctuary cities here. It is a major security issue. And our leadership, our Democratic leadership, has been fighting against the president, wanting to maintain criminals in our state. And so Ras Baraka, who is one of the Democratic gubernatorial candidates, used this as a political opportunity to get his name out across the nation by fighting against President Trump and going to one of the ICE facilities that was newly opened in Newark, New Jersey to house these illegal criminals and fighting to get in there. And he was not supposed to be there. Homeland Security told him he could not enter the facility, and he did anyway. So I think you're going to
Jacob, bring up that video. bring up my screen if you would. I want to show this to everybody. So this is a video of, see if I can expand this out. I don't know if I have audio on that. This is a video of the mayor of Newark being arrested.
So if you want me to explain what people are seeing.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, so what happened here is that you had 3 congressional representatives, Democrats, Bonnie Watson Coleman, Rob Menendez Jr., the son of Rob Menendez, who's going to jail, and LaMonica McIver, who decided that they were going to perform oversight duties at this facility. Well, they're allowed to do that, but they showed up unannounced, and the facility has the right to tell them that whether or not they could enter the facility. But they did show up unannounced, and when they were asked to leave because Ras Baraka entered and he was not allowed to be there, he is not a congressman, they pushed back, and it became very nasty. There was some assault there. I actually slowed down the video on one of my posts to show people that the congresswoman actually assaulted the officers, which is not allowed. It's not something Congress people are allowed to do. So Ras Baraka was arrested on May 9th.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I read this article, and what he says is, so I had to do a deep dive on the mayor, Ras Baraka, and he said that, let me find it. He said that he was pushing on building permit issues right here. So Baraka has aggressively pushed back against the construction and opening of the 1,000-bed detention center at Delaney Hall, arguing that it should not be allowed to open because of building permit issues. Mm-hmm. And somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but the only way that local building permit issues can interfere with a federal facility is if that federal facility is on leased land. But if the federal government owns that land, then there are no local permitting constraints that would tie them up. So I have a feeling this is just nonsense that he's saying to try to give him some sort of some credibility in this fight, because what it looks like to me is this guy tried to break into a federal facility, mm-hmm. was denied by ICE, by federal agents, and fought back and assaulted the cops at some point. So, I don't know where you go with that.
Well, this is why it's important for people to understand the laws and jurisdiction. And what these people in politics will do is they'll take advantage of the ignorance of the public and try to use that to get an emotional reaction out of them. And right now, Ras Baraka is taking full advantage of it to get his name out, to try to win a seat as the next governor of New Jersey, which I believe he will not, because in the state of New Jersey, we're tired of this kind of politics. I mean, Ras Baraka is a major advocate for identity politics, which is dumb. We're so tired of DEI. We're so tired of being judged by the content of our color instead of our character. It is absolutely insane. So this is a big media play for him. And right now he is facing potentially a fine of up to $500 and 30 days in jail. He goes back to court on the 15th. I hate to say I don't expect that anything major will happen to him, but protests continue to take place by protesters who are probably paid, and they are saying they're going to stay there until they are arrested. So this is the beginning of what I see as the inception of the second coming of the summer of love.
Yeah, there you go. And that's what we were talking about last week, the Summer of Love 2.0. And here's the thing. These are the same people who less than a year ago, 6 months ago, were screaming about how nobody is above the law when it came to Trump, and nobody is above the law. Nobody is above the law. And yet there are people above the law, according to them. And right now, you're right. Unfortunately, he's probably going to get off because his Democratic buddies up in Congress are going to help smooth this over. But does the law truly apply to everyone or not? And that's the bottom line. And it's just insane to see this play out. a mayor of a major city assaulting federal agents trying to break into, a federal facility, and yet the guy is out now, and you're right. There's not going to be any accountability for this clown. So it's unfortunate to see, but
I agree. But there's something to be said for the inaction of Speaker Mike Johnson. I mean, we saw 3 congressional representatives show up to this federal facility, demand to get in and not work with Homeland Security. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that Republicans tried to do the same thing with J6ers who were in a facility and we knew were being treated unfairly, but they weren't even allowed anywhere into the facility at all. These congressional representatives actually went into the facility and continued to stay there despite the fact that they were told to leave.
No, that's a fantastic point. I'm glad you brought that up. And I guess for me, the issue here, it boils down to, you just said the J6 thing, and they'll try to liken this to a situation like that where a citizen of America's rights were denied. Their constitutionally protected rights were denied. They were not given due process. They were locked up for years on end before they were even seen by a judge. And they'll say that this is somehow acceptable and that Republicans did the same thing to a certain extent. But then when Democrats do this in defense of illegal aliens, invaders coming into our country who do not have constitutional protections and are being extradited out of our country as they should be by the president, they'll try to say that this is apples to apples. And I'm like, it's not. It's not in any way.
Exactly.
So,
and it just further proves the agenda that the Democrats believe that criminal illegal aliens have more rights than Americans. And I think Americans are tired of it.
I agree. Man, what a mess.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you want me to get into kind of what happened yesterday to kind of add on to the New Jersey politics. So, like I said, we have this gubernatorial primary that's upcoming in less than 3 weeks. It's on June 10th, about 3 weeks. And yesterday, Trump endorsed Jack Ciattarelli, who's a Republican candidate. Now, in the state of New Jersey, people recognize Jack Ciattarelli's name because he was the candidate that ran against Phil Murphy in 2021, but lost. Now, they will say that that election was potentially fraudulent. There were some very questionable things that took place there. However, Jack was not the nominee that MAGA would accept. I mean, there were a lot of things that were an issue, and I can rattle them off for you. So Jack, as a candidate, or as a legislator, he's been in politics for almost his entire life. He supported men and women's spaces. He supported driver's licenses for illegals. He subsidized in-state tuition for illegals. He wants to fund Planned Parenthood with tax dollars. He continues to tout DEI across the state and in government hiring. He claimed that Murphy did a good job with COVID. I mean, we saw that Governor Murphy was one of the worst when it came to COVID. He refused to stand up against mask mandates. He refused to stand up against vaccine mandates. He donated to Chris Christie twice, even though he's saying, "Oh, I have nothing to do with Chris Christie." He bragged in 2021 that he didn't want the endorsement of the NRA or of Trump. He was endorsed by Nikki Haley, and he was proud of that. But he did not want the NRA or Trump to endorse him. He's got documented TDS. He called Trump a charlatan. He disrespected him, called him an embarrassment to our country. And he blamed his loss in 2021 on the fact that his campaign was too white. Yet his campaign still is white. But, the problem is he wants to continue to do identity politics. And he also has invested in CCP companies who want to buy up U.S. farmland. So all of these things, the people in New Jersey have seen it all. We have watched this happen since in his entirety in politics. We know this man is a flip-flopper. We know he says what he needs to say to get elected. And somehow all of that never got to President Trump. And he endorsed him yesterday, ironically, on the day that he fought back against Big Pharma, who is the biggest backer of Jack Ciattarelli. So
yeah, what's your take? I mean, why? Best guess. Why did Trump endorse this guy? Because there's no way he didn't know. If anybody's talking trash about him, he knows who they are immediately. So why did he back?
Unfortunately, I do believe our president is one of the most insulated people in the world, and rightfully so. His life is always in danger. He's very insulated. Unfortunately, there are people with access to the president that can sway his decision making and give him bad advice. And I truly believe that that is the case. I will always remain loyal to the president, but I do know that there are situations, and we've seen it in the past, where there are people giving him bad advice. And unfortunately, this is one of those situations. And that's why I will continue to call it out until that goes away, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's really upsetting. I didn't even know we were going to talk about this situation, but I was reading about that when I was digging around on the mayor of Newark and read a lot of the things that this guy was, his, like you said, the past and the things he said about Trump. And I was just shocked. And I think a lot of people are shocked by this. And I guess what I'll be looking for is, does Trump change his stance after he sees the outcry on social media, or does he maintain? I don't know. It's hard to say. I think at this point you have to maintain.
There was a ton of, I was surprised at how much backlash the president received, because a lot of people are very afraid to be critical of the president. And when I went on Truth Social on his post where he endorsed Jack, 99% of the posts were saying, "You got this one wrong, Mr. President." And I posted a video showing that. So, and hopefully it gets to him. But I will say, one of the things that I know, and one of the people and this isn't a secret, Kellyanne Conway is one of the people that is behind Jack Ciattarelli's campaign. And
really?
So she is one of the reasons why bad information has gotten to the president. And one of the things that I'm told that she used to sway his opinion was the fact that Bill Spadia, who is the people's candidate, at one point after Trump, after they stole the 2020 election, but one of the things that Bill Spadia said was that, Mr. President, you got a few things wrong. He said, you didn't drain the swamp, right? And that there's nothing wrong with saying that. That is the truth. He said, I didn't like your stance on COVID. I think that you should have pushed back on masking mandates and all of these things. You should have pushed back harder, right? And he said what everyone was thinking. And I believe that they truly used those things, despite the fact that Bill had President Trump on his show and actually aired those grievances to him himself. And President Trump agreed. And he said, you know what? You're right. So I don't know how he didn't look at the entirety of the board before making that endorsement, but I do truly hope that he takes a second look at it.
I'll tell you, it gives me hope that he is willing to accept criticism, because that's something he's often not willing to do. And then it also gives me hope to see his base reply to this decision he made and be critical and say this, because I think I think MAGA gets lumped into into this idea that they never criticize the president, they never speak out against him, and they just blindly follow him into battle no matter what happens. And so it's good to see that people are being critical of what he's doing and saying, hey, look, we're with you, but you're messing up with this one. You need to alter course.
And the people that are against MAGA will call us a cult. And this will prove we're not a cult. We stand by him. We have loyalty, but yes, he is an imperfect human being, but God will use imperfect people to do great things. And I still truly believe that. And that is why I still maintain hope that at the end of the day, on June 10th, the people will still elect Bill Spadia with or without Trump's endorsement.
I hope so. I really do. Speaking of which, we had talked about that other subject, and that was something I spent a lot of time studying, and I'm as confused as ever. But I have a general theme talking about Trump's desire to reduce the cost of pharmaceutical medicines and, you know, drugs and all that stuff. I wanted to get into that because that's a huge topic right now, and I think we're gearing up for a big fight with big pharma. And after the last several years of the COVID vaccine and the damage we saw it do, and people were rightly very critical and very angry about Operation Warp Speed. Operation Warp Speed, while it may have been noble in the mind of some, it subverted a lot of regulations that were in place for the safety of the people, to make sure that drugs were tested right. And so people have attacked Trump because he's an advocate for Operation Warp Speed, and for the vaccine itself. He's made a lot of even recent comments that are, you know, very approving of the COVID vaccine, despite the injuries and the maiming we've seen. But this comes down to me. This comes back to one of those things where I think we talk about being insulated, and I think we're about to see something unique here. He pushed for this in his first term. He was very big on pushing for lower cost drugs for the American people. And he's taken this fight on again, even though he lost in Congress. And I think, how far does he take this? Because he's at the beginning of his term. I think the last time he pushed for this was like 2019, 2020. It was towards the end of his term. And this time he's starting off by pushing back against big pharma and saying we need to bring down the price of drugs. What does that look like? What does that fight look like over the next couple of years? Because that's what it's going to be. This is going to be a battle between a $1 trillion industry and the president of the United States.
It is a major machine. I mean, everyone across the nation has felt the effects of the corruption within big pharma and how much they control. And like I said, right here in New Jersey, they're controlling our politics. But, you know, in terms of what big pharma controls that affects our everyday lives, I do believe that we are at a point in history where people are ready to fight with him. People are ready to stand with him. I think it took COVID and all of the things that have affected people for them to say, you know what, this is a major problem. And going into the midterms, I would imagine that he's got numbers that say that now is the right time. So I think that might be part of the reason he's doing for the timing, and that he's doing it now. But it makes sense. If other nations are spending less money on the same drugs that we have here within the United States, and we only have 5% of the population, why are we paying 3/4 of the profits to big pharma? It just doesn't make sense. And this is an age in which we're all about common sense.
I think so. And this ties into everything we're talking about at local community, you know, how important it is to give people cost affordable, drugs, because we've outsourced so much of our stuff to other nations. We're really at a critical juncture where our national security is at risk. If for some reason we went to war with China, or if for some reason we lost that access to be able to procure these drugs, we need to not only bring that industry back to the United States, but we also need to bring the prices down so that people can afford them. And it comes down to this for me. I see this issue raised over and over and over with other nations, where they talk about, well, our drugs cost this and America's drugs cost this, and it's because we have socialized healthcare in the United States. They're just about corporation or corporate greed and everything else. And I say, specifically with Canada pisses me off the most, but it's really all of these socialized countries that subsidize medicine and healthcare for their people. And Canada doesn't have to invest in the defense industry like America does, because Big Brother America is there to protect them. So they have the luxury of being able to have socialized medicine and all of these other things that they can spend their money on. We don't. We protect the entire free world with our military. And if we didn't exist, who knows what these countries would do tomorrow, literally. So we front all of the R&D for drugs. We pay all of the high costs and prices, and then we paying $1 trillion on our defense budget, and you have countries like Canada that can snub their nose at us and say, well, you just need to be more like us and be better with your healthcare. And I'm like, that is an arrogant point of view to even come to the table with, considering you probably wouldn't exist at this point if it wasn't for America. Literally, like nobody would come to your aid. And that's the case for a majority of the free world. So
glad you said that. It's such a great point. And I think that for too long, the media has skewed the truth away from people to understand that reality. And I'm glad you said that.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to this fight because you know me, I have fought back against the COVID mandate in the military specifically for years, and what they did and the lack of accountability that's taken place for their unlawful implementation of the mandate. And when you really get going through all the griminess of what happened, and you see how Pfizer is tied into all of the test data that the DoD was willingly handing out to them. I mean, so you take the test data that they took from the EUA drug, and it was basically on all service members and all service members' family, and they handed all of that test data off to Pfizer. Pfizer didn't have to conduct a study. They didn't have to pay people, millions and millions, maybe even billions of dollars to get this test data that they needed. They just relied on the Department of Defense, who had all of the demographic data on their service members, and took all of that test data, I mean, literally guinea pigs for Pfizer, so that Pfizer could make money off of this. Pfizer doesn't take any risks. They're not going to court or to jail if anybody's hurt by this, because they're completely immune from any damages that are done. So you just have a sweetheart deal between the Department of Defense and Pfizer. And you look at things like this and you're like, where's the risk? How do you get to take no risk and gain all the reward, make all of this money? And then you look back into Pfizer's history and you look into these other drug companies' histories, and you see these billion-dollar payouts, these billion-dollar lawsuits for damages and injuries they've done over the years. I mean, some really egregious stuff going back 30 years now. And they're fine because they'll just make all of that in a day and keep going. And it's insane to me. So I want the president to take these guys on, and I want Congress to be exposed for the kind of lobbying money that they're taking from these clowns.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad they finally declared that mandate for these gene mutilating vaccines against the military to be unlawful. But the problem is, despite that, will these service members who've been affected ever get back what they've lost? And that is the sad reality of all of the things that have happened. So I think that, in terms of getting this right, it is so important that we do this sooner than later, because there are still people suffering from the effects of what.
Absolutely great. 100%. Dead on. I mean, we need accountability across the board. Kaity, I know you're short on time. I appreciate you being on the show. For the viewers, we're going to do this more often. Kaity is going to be a regular part of this show, and hopefully some other shows we do. But your voice is so important. So thank you for coming on, shedding light on that, telling us about what's going on in your community. This is something I want other people to focus on. I want you to pay attention to what's going on in your communities and start holding your politicians accountable for what they're doing, both in and out of your local community. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks so much, Sam. I'm honored to be here. And Our Country, Our Choice is super important for everyone to keep their eyes on, because this is the battlefield.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you. Take care. So before we cut out for the day, I want to talk to everybody about a couple admin things with Our Country, Our Choice. But really quick, actually, there's only one thing. Not a couple of things. Can you share my screen? Perfect. So we were talking about the members portal, and we were supposed to come out on May 5th. We weren't able to get it there. This is This is our developer server, so it's a little slow. It's not sitting on our production servers, but I want you to get a look at what it's going to be, just so you know what we're going to be working with. And this is, I'll just break it down from top to bottom. First of all, you have your forums, and I'll go into these in a second. You have your calendar, focus, polls, and you can search through the site. The big one right here is invite new members. So this invite new members is going to be huge. This is a private members only platform. And this invite new members is going to be your opportunity to bring people into your local community. So this stuff is all geographically aligned. You can see here that my location is here in Orlando, Florida. And that means that people within a certain radius of me are going to be talking to me when I'm on the platform. And I'm not going to be talking to people all over the nation. And that's what we're doing with the members platform, so that you can engage and connect and come together as a community where you live, and not just on some big national platform where it gets lost in a sea of conversation. Up here at the top, we're going to have a couple of things that we control here at OCOC. Information that we want to put out. We want to put out notes or relevant information or stuff that you should be focused on within the community. But then we have the actual forum topics themselves, and this is a lot of fun. So this is all just dummy data. Ignore everything you see in here. This is all just dummy data. But basically, it's a forum like anything else. It gives you the opportunity to create forums, comment on those forums, and just have that conversation. Once again, that's geographically aligned. And then you can go into focus, and you can actually create events. So I can go in here and I can create an event, and these categories will likely change to some degree, but you can set your category, choose your subcategory after you've chosen your category, and then you can set this local or national. I don't know if that national is going to stay there, but for now, the most important thing is local. Set your county, set where you're at, set your focus, and then you can create these events. And then you set these events up on the calendar, and you can have whatever, get together, a barbecue, a cleanup, a rally at the courthouse, whatever it is that you want to do. You guys can put this together yourself, and you can decide what you need to do in your community to take action and to start cleaning up whatever the issue is. Anyways, another big issue here is, or a big feature we have on our website is going to be polls. And this gives you the ability to conduct local polls and get feedback from those in your community, those defenders that are actually on the platform, and get real feedback on issues that are pertinent to you that other folks might not know about. So I wanted to bring that to your attention, just so you were aware that we are almost there. You bring me back in. We are almost there. A few more days, we're going to have this out to you. Our IT guy, who is working overseas right now at a breakneck speed to get Republic out, and I won't break down Republic. You all know what that is if you're a part of this organization and you know what we do here. But he's furiously working on Republic right now, and that's taking up most of his time, but we are right on the edge of releasing the members portal, and I'm excited about that. So anyways, stay tuned. I'm looking forward to getting a guy on in the next couple of weeks who's been doing a lot of research with the white clumps and the white fibrous stuff that they're finding in exhume or in bodies that coroners are finding. And there's a lot of really, really necessary information that you should be tuned into to know what is going on with our health post the COVID vaccine. So with that, thanks for watching the show. See you probably next week, maybe another show this week, but probably next week. And you guys take care. All right. See you later.